Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the main card fights for UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus, Barboza versus Gaethje. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the main card. So in our first fight on the main card, we have in the featherweight division, Moraes versus Yusuff. So you got two heavy hitters going at it in this fight. Two young, talented fighters, two young, talented up-and-comers or rising up contenders, prospects, whatever you want to call them. Coming up in this division, there's two solid strikers. Moraes has more UFC experience by far, or at least considering that Yusuff has only one fight in the UFC. He just debuted in his last fight, and Moraes had about 4 fights in the UFC, and has fought some of the best competition he can face so far in those 4 fights. He fought Zabit, Magomed Sharipov, or just say Zabit. He fought Zabit, fought Julio Arce, for some other good names, I think with Sales and some other people. But basically the two standout ones are Arce, his last opponent he fought and beat, and his loss to Zabit. Those are his two biggest names, the two best people he's fought since being in UFC. So he's fought some good people. So Yusuff kind of got a overhyped, padded record guy in his UFC debut, but I was impressed by Yusuff more by his Contender Series fight against an undefeated prospect, undefeated hot prospect in Mike Davis, who was undefeated as an amateur and a pro, lots of finishes, never went to decision, and he went out there, had a firefight, and just showed some real sound technical abilities in that fight. Showed some heavy leg kicks, showed some power, showed some technique, showed some good boxing, showed a good jab, a lot of different things you want to look for in a fighter. Showed a good mindset, showed the ability to mix it up and have a good game plan and stay level-headed throughout the fight, even in firefights. So that's real stuff you look for in a prospect who can go rise up the rankings. And he has those, he has those, what's I would say, he has that about him. I'm missing a word right now, but he has that about him. He has that aura about him that he has all those things that you need to be a solid like a solid prospect who can rise up the division and potentially in the future even challenge the top 10, top 5, and maybe even go on to fight for a title or something like that. But at least he has the ability that you could see that he can definitely be a top 10 fighter in the future. So that's all about him. And Moraes in this last fight showed that he's not just going to be this guy that's going to be all power, or he still basically won his last fight all power, but he did show that he has the ability that he can possibly rise up the ranks. At first it seemed like he's going to be a guy that's going to be real athletic, a lot of power, and just kind of be stuck at the bottom and never really rise up. But by him beating Julio Arce, who I saw as a fighter with a lot of talent and who had a good boxing and had good jiu-jitsu and really had all the tools to beat Moraes, and saw that he pretty much knocked the fight out of him. It's pretty much like that old saying, everybody got a game plan until they get hit. Like every time Moraes landed a good shot, it was like Julio Arce got worn down, just all one shot. Like Julio Arce was winning the fight. I mean, was winning too long. So he got hit about in the first minute. Then he was looking good, outboxed him. Then he got hit one time, got dropped, turned into a grappling matchup. But basically what I'm saying, every time he got hit, then the next time bust open, started leaking. His punches started coming slower. Was gushing blood, got dropped again. And every time he got hit, his fight IQ got dropped every time he got hit. And his output got dropped every time he got hit. So that power definitely was a changer in that fight against Julio Arce, who on paper was the much more technical fighter, and probably was, but every time he got hit, like I said, when you get hit, that stuff started changing. So that's what I really worry about in this fight against Yusuff. I think Yusuff is the more technical striker, and he has more ability to mix it up, whereas Moraes, he's kind of predictable to strike. He has a lot of power. He's very athletic, very explosive, but you kind of see what he's drawing. It's like he's throwing these big, wide hooks, mixing to the body and the head, maybe throw a head kick here and there, but he's really kind of telegraphed and predictable. He's not telegraphed, but he's predictable in his movements or what he's going to throw. He has patterns, clear patterns that what he's going to throw, but it's the power that he has and explosiveness and that athleticism that can change the course of a fight. So if Yusuff can take his power or at least not get hit clean by him, then, or it's really just going to depend on how Yusuff responds to his power and his pressure and his pace early. But I think if Yusuff can slow the fight down a bit, and also Yusuff has much more power than Arce, so he definitely has some power that Moraes will have to respect, because if Moraes coming in too aggressive, he can get knocked out real quick. But I think more so going to be how each of them deal with the power, but I think more so once it comes down to technique and mixing up their strikes, and I think Yusuff is the better striker, and that's what's going to be the tell of the fighting. Moraes will be kind of good early, landing some heavy shots, and going to have to get that. Yusuff's going to have to earn his respect, or they both going to have to fight for respect. And I think Yusuff's going to need to earn that respect early, so he can beat him down the stretch. And that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to early on. It's going to be a firefight. Going to have to shut Moraes down, hit him hard, and make him lower his offense once he respect that power of Yusuff and what's coming back to counters. And then I think when it's past midway through the second round and down the third round, I think he starts to break Moraes down, just mix him up high, low, attacking the legs, attacking the body, attacking the head, sticking a jab in his face, and really shutting Moraes' game down. I think he dices him up in the third round and finishes him off via TKO. So in this fight, I got Yusuff via third round TKO. Now on to our next fight we have in the light heavyweight division, Paul Craig versus Kennedy Nzechukwu, or Nzechukwu. I'm going to say, yeah, Nzechukwu, that's what I'm calling him. You got a nice prospect here coming into the light heavyweight division. Nice frame, 6'5", taller than John Jones by an inch, like an 82 or 83 inch reach, so close to John Jones in reach. But skill-wise, nowhere near, even when John Jones was just debuting. So he's had a lot to improve on, but a solid frame, pretty young. He's like 26, 27, so young. Lots of skill, lots of potential, a good frame, good template to build on. And who knows what he could become if his skills matches his build. Like his skills can one day meet his build, or he can maximize his frame and do stuff with it. Right now, I'm still not that impressed with him. I think he has a lot of holes, but they're matching him against the perfect guy, Paul Craig. Paul Craig is a guy, one of those guys that like probably in the gym, one of the best dudes in the gym. He has real good submission skills. His striking is pretty good, but when he gets in there, he just kind of, like a lot of fights, he just kind of just turns into a deer in headlight. Like he's not the same as he's in the gym out there. Like you could tell that he's very skilled, solid jiu-jitsu game. His striking is all right. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's certainly all right and should be more than enough to hold his own with a lot of good people in the division in the sport. But he just kind of, like I said, turns into a deer in the headlights and kind of chokes. And against a guy like Kennedy Nzechukwu, he probably going to see this big 6'5" African dude and kind of get scared because he fought Khalil Roundtree, who was just power, really, poor grappling. And he has all this grappling knowledge and skills, and he just pretty much stood there and and really backed up and let Khalil Roundtree knock him out. Like, what was the game plan in there? And he saw in some of his other fights, it's just like he just kind of shuts down in fights. So I really just going to think Nzechukwu is going to make some improvements and be better than we saw him on the Contender Series, along with Paul Craig just choking in the fight and not really showing up. I think he's not going to try to exploit Nzechukwu's grappling game. He's probably going to back up. He's probably not going to be trying to be in his face. You're dealing with a long guy. He's not going to be in his face trying to land that big shot or really trying to press him backwards and maybe go for grappling. That'd be the smart move, but I think he's not going to do that. He's probably going to fight on the outside and eventually just start backpedaling. And then Nzechukwu just going to press forward on him and start landing big shots on him, using that reach. Is Paul Craig going to really put himself out of range and is being stuck in Nzechukwu's range because he's just going to be choking in the fight like he usually does. And once he's backings up, I think Nzechukwu going to be able to land big shots on him and keep him like at a yard distance with those long arms, long limbs, and just pick him apart and then take him out in the first round via TKO. So in this fight, I got Kennedy Nzechukwu via first round TKO. Now on to our next fight we have in the women's strawweight division, Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Michelle Waterson. So this is a pretty good fight right here, but I don't think it's all that good in my opinion. I think Michelle Waterson is a talented fighter, definitely still kind of undersized. I think she's really like an atom-weight, but she came up because this is the lowest weight class they had, but she's been here for a while and been doing pretty all right for herself up and down. I think she's on her first winning streak in a while over Herrig and I forget that other chick, but that chick's pretty big and up and down. But whatever cases, she's doing a little bit more decent than usual. But all that being said, I think Karolina Kowalkiewicz is just too much for her. I don't really think Michelle Waterson presents anything for Kowalkiewicz. Like Michelle Waterson doesn't present power. I think her real best advantage is maybe her grappling and maybe her experience. That's about it. But Kowalkiewicz has built up her own experience for a title here in the UFC, lost, but has fought a lot of the best people, and she's really kind of destroyed Rose Namajunas to get her title shot before Rose Namajunas eventually got on another streak and won the title, but kind of out-muscled, outpaced, and broke down Rose Namajunas. And I think she could do the same to Michelle Waterson, who's even smaller, even weaker, and not really she's not really the most physical fighter. I think Kowalkiewicz, even though she's a skinny, lanky fighter, she has one of like those skinny fighters that has a lot of strength. I think she can just with her volume and her size and her strength just put the volume on Michelle Waterson, out-strike Michelle Waterson. I think she's the better striker. Then Michelle Waterson wants to grapple. I just think Kowalkiewicz can still just kind of like she's not as good of a grappler as Waterson, but I think she's competent enough that she can neutralize Waterson's grappling, just really just muscle around the cage, volume, striker, and just put fists to face and kicks to face and stuff on Michelle Waterson, just constantly being in her face and just peppering her with strikes. Neither of them really are power strikers. I just think it's going to be a decision fight where this Kowalkiewicz just really outpointing and just outworking and kind of manhandling Michelle Waterson around the ring to a decision. So in this fight, I got Karolina Kowalkiewicz via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the featherweight division, Josh Emmett versus Michael Johnson. So Michael Johnson's riding a good bit of steam right now. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. And Josh Emmett is coming off a loss to Jeremy Stephens. And he was doing pretty well until he lost to Jeremy Stephens. Was rising up the ranks and was looking like he was so close to a title shot until Jeremy Stephens stopped it all in his track, or stopped him in his track. And I don't know why he's been out for like almost a year now, it seems, maybe more. I'm not going to check it up, but it's been a while since Josh Emmett last fought. I think Jeremy Stephens fought like twice since that fight. So it's been a minute since Josh Emmett last fought. I guess maybe he's been rehabbing the concussion, or maybe he's been trying to get that win overturned. I guess at this point he's saying they're not going to overturn it. I'm good. Let me get back and make some money. I'm not no millionaire. I got to fight. So he's been inactive, and in that time I think Michael Johnson had fought like 3 or 4 fights since Emmett last fought. So Michael Johnson has been active. Emmett has been inactive, but does that really matter too much? It can, but just given that it's Michael Johnson, I'm going to say he's so inconsistent that Josh Emmett, just being a more well-rounded fighter, should win. You know, Michael Johnson had a wrestling background, or he has history of wrestling and been in with a good gym called the Black Zillion, so he's been around a lot of Brazilians and a lot of good wrestlers like Kamaru Usman. It seems like he gets taken down and manhandled a lot of times in these fights. And I think Josh Emmett can do that. I don't think Josh Emmett's grappling is all that great, but I think it's probably good enough to cause Johnson some issue. I think Michael Johnson's a much better striker, but I think Josh Emmett can at least, hold his own on the feet, mixing some grappling, and have some success there to win this fight. I think, like I said, Michael Johnson's just too inconsistent. He should be really at this point in his career, with the confidence he has and the team he has around him and the skills he has around him, he can fully implement them and stop like this looking bad in fights and really improve on his wrestling defense and grappling defense. This would be a fight he should for sure win, but just based off how inconsistent Michael Johnson is, I think he's going to allow Josh Emmett to wrestle him. I think Josh Emmett should avoid striking with him too much and really focus on mixing in the grappling. I think that's really his clear path to victory. And we look at Michael Johnson's losses, really all of them have came by him being grappled, or grappling being a heavy part of those fights, not just somebody striking him. Because he outstruck Essen Barboza, and that tells you just how good his striking can be. Knocked out Dustin Poirier, so he's nobody to play with on the feet. So best that you mix in that grappling, especially after you saw you get knocked out and pretty much nobody even held your back. You got knee in the head illegally, so nobody gonna give you no pat on the back or no benefit of the doubt or nothing like that. So it's not about being exciting all the time. You gotta get some wins. I think Josh Emmett's gonna realize that and just go out there, not even try to be exciting or do something crazy. Just go about it and get a win so he can get off that losing streak and then maybe worry about other stuff. But for this fight, it's just all about getting a win. So I think Josh Emmett's going to fight smart, hold his own on the feet with Michael Johnson, look for setups for takedowns, or set up his takedowns with his strikes. Get Michael Johnson thinking he's going to be a striking match, go for some takedowns, find success with that, wear him down. Then in the third round, he's able to submit Michael Johnson. So in this fight, I have Josh Emmett via third round submission. Now on to our next fight we have in the middleweight division, David Branch versus Jack Hermansson. So it's a pretty interesting matchup right here. You got David Branch, who's coming off a loss to Cannonier, was looking all right, then got caught, and just like that, the fight was over. You got Jack Hermansson, who's kind of been a lower tier middleweight for a good couple years, and now finally getting some stride to his career, or finally streaking in his career. And this is the fight that can really get him up into the upper echelon of the middleweight division. But how do they match up? Branch is 37, Hermansson is about 30. They're both 6'1", even though Hermansson looks like he's 6'4", just based off his frame and how he looks in fights. But both 6'1". Hermansson, really the most interesting thing about this fight is Hermansson's style. You might say, oh, he has decent striking, he has this and that. But when you look at it, it's really, outside of his debut in the UFC, all his wins have been, 99% of his strikes came from ground and pound. Like, that's his style. He gets you down, you can't get from underneath him, then he grounds and pounds you to like a TKO or some like a submission. So he's pretty much, once he gets on top of you, you can't get him off. But his striking, as far as is like striking, we really haven't seen him strike too much outside of his UFC debut, so we don't know how good it is, but we know that once he gets you down, that's where he's dangerous at. But we know with David Branch, he has solid boxing. I think he's been kind of timid with it in the UFC a bit, outside of the Rocco fight in the first round. But I think he's going to let his hands go in this fight because he's not going to worry too much about Jack Hermansson's striking. He hasn't really used it much, so he doesn't have shown really power with his strike. So David Branch shouldn't be too worried about letting his hands go, and should be the much better striker. And he's also a top-notch BJJ. He has top-notch BJJ as well, so he should be able to hold his own with Hermansson in the grappling, and on the feet he should have a clear advantage. And I think in the takedown area he has a clear advantage over Hermansson as well. But really, this fight just relies on Branch not getting taken down and flattened out. If he can stay from getting underneath Hermansson, this should be his fight to win clear. The better striker, probably the better BJJ guy, and pure BJJ, just avoid from getting flattened out. You might say, oh, Rocco did it, but Rocco did that to Weidman, Machida, and Branch. So, and those guys that was undefeated Weidman, that was former world champion Lyoto Machida. Hermansson did that to like Mershard and Jack Nicholson, or guys like who is that? Guys that really are lower middle tier, like matter of fact, lower tier middleweights. Whereas Rocco did that to the best of the best. Undefeated champion Weidman, who was looking like he'll go be a champion for a long time, did that to that Weidman. So at least David Branch get a bit of a pass for getting flattened out by Rocco, because nobody seemed to be able to get other than Rocco, and that's like the best of the best the division has ever had to offer. Without that being said, I just feel like David Branch is just, like I'm saying, just the more well-rounded fighter. He can hold his own in grappling. I think he should be able to keep it on the feet, outbox Hermansson, break him down, and take him out in the second round. So in this fight, I have David Branch via second round TKO. Now on to our main event we have in the lightweight division, Edson Barboza versus Justin Gaethje. So this fight is pretty interesting. You got both guys really having mirror image paths to this fight right here. Edson Barboza was on a 2-fight losing streak. Then he beat Dan Hooker to get to this fight. Justin Gaethje was on a 2-fight losing streak. Then he beat James Vick to get this fight. Justin Gaethje lost to two similar fighters. He lost to Eddie Alvarez first, a former lightweight champion with a wrestling kind of striking, boxing type of style. Then he lost to Dustin Poirier with like a grappling type of boxing style, like a former champion. Then rising contender or top contender in Poirier. Then on the other side, Edson Barboza lost to a future lightweight champion in Khabib Nurmagomedov, a wrestler, ground and pound artist. Then he lost to Kevin Lee, a top contender, a top rising contender in Kevin Lee, who's a wrestler, ground and pound artist. So like they both kind of had a similar thing, like a champion or former champion, then a top contender was named for like boxer wrestlers or grappler wrestlers. That guy fought wrestlers or wrestler, ground and pound. So they're kind of mirroring an image, and also their wins to get back to on the winning side. Edson Barboza fought a tall, lanky Dan Hooker, riding, streaking, tall Dan Hooker striker. Justin Gaethje fought a tall, streaking James Vick. So they both really fought mirror image paths to get to where they at right now. But all that being said, it's not about who they fought. It's about how they match up against each other. And I think neither of them match up to be each other's kryptonite, really, because Gaethje's not using his wrestling, but he does present that forward pressure that can be an issue for Barboza. And Barboza might not be a boxer, but he does have some good body shots and some good body attacks and a decent jab. He might not use it well, might not have that good of a head movement, but he does have some of the tools that can present some issues for Gaethje. So they have tools that can present issues for each other, but not the full toolkit. But I'm going to lean to Gaethje in this fight. This fight's going to be a sight-in, like dog fight, like all Gaethje fights. And Barboza has been in nothing but a sight-in fights. And let me say one more positive thing about Barboza. He has the heart of a champion for sure. He's been hit hard in a lot of fights. And you never really seen him quit in any fight. Like he's been hit like ground and pounded by Kevin Lee and Nurmagomedov for rounds after round, never quit. And really the only time he's been stopped is like a cut against Kevin Lee and getting choked by kind of like a weird jab that dropped him against Cerrone. Cerrone took his back, but he never shown any quit. So he's definitely gonna be in there for the dog fight. And Gaethje is somebody who has never quit. And most times the ref's been stopping a fight, but he's never pulled out of a fight or quit in a fight. He's always there. So it's gonna be two fighters who refuse to quit. So it's gonna be definitely fireworks, and two guys who have never been in a boring fight. They have never even been in a boring second of a fight. All the fights are exciting through all rounds, through every second. That's like crazy. Two highlight reel fighters. But I feel like Gaethje's gonna win in this fighting. The forward pressure is going to present openings against Barboza. And Barboza might have this good striking, but his head movement has never been the best. He kind of stands straight up because he likes to throw those kicks. He keeps his hands high, but the head movement's not there. Like, have your hands up is one part of defending yourself, but head movement's another. He really doesn't have the best head movement, kind of stands up. And when he gets pushed back, his head comes even further up. His hands get lowered. And Gaethje has some good overhands, some good hooks that could reach behind the guard. The overhand can come over top, especially when he can push forward. I don't think Gaethje's going to win the kicking battle, but he is going to win the gritty battle, getting there and pushing Barboza back, who doesn't like to be pushed back. And when he's really pressured, he doesn't circle the best. Like, he starts going backwards, doesn't really circle too much, doesn't stick a jab there, doesn't throw a feint out there to get your pressure off him. So really, you just pressure him, it's really just him going back. And Barboza will have a good shot, maybe mixing some body shots, but I think he's not going to be doing enough of what he needs to do to neutralize Gaethje. And this Gaethje's forward pressure is just pretty much going to start to wear Barboza down. And Barboza can take a good shot, but no matter how good your chin is, no matter how good your heart is, you're getting hit with too many big shots, it's going to spell the end for you. And I think Gaethje hits a lot harder than most people Barboza has fought. He's fought some decent fighters, but they really haven't been the heaviest hitters. And even then, he's still been affected by some of that punches. So Gaethje is probably the hardest hitter he's going to have faced in recent years. And that's going to be a big factor in this fight, along with the pressure being inside his face. And Gaethje also has shown, still has a chance to show that he can change, where Barboza, he's really not going to change too much from what you've seen with. Like with Gaethje, there's still a chance for him to change. Where Barboza, he's been around the UFC for a good minute. He's made little changes here and there, but most part has been the same fighter. And then Gaethje still has that factor where he can show you something different, where Barboza's not really going to show you anything new. Gaethje's going to push him back. Those openings are going to open in the striking for power shots by Gaethje, especially with Barboza going back. Competitive fight, definitely going to be both fighters getting hurt significantly in this fight. But Gaethje just going to win the bloody brawl. and that's going to be really his type of fight anyway. And Gaethje's going to come out on top, catch Barboza over the top with like an overhand when he's backing up, drop him, finish with some ground and pound after a 3-round war. I think it's going to happen like late in the 3rd round, and Gaethje's going to get that 3rd round TKO. So in this fight, I have Justin Gaethje via 3rd round TKO. And that concludes my predictions for the main card of UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus, Barboza versus Gaethje. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.